that are sitting next to you. What do you see? People who are dressed professionally, right? People who look like they have it all together, are very calm and collected. Then look at me, someone who is boring, plain, unassuming, casual, a face in the crowd. That's what people with depression think like. These thoughts go through their head every day, that they're not worth as much as the people around them. A writer for the New England Center, Jennifer McKim, wrote that in the spring of 2015, a young freshman by the name of Luke Tang killed himself in the basement of his dormitory about 2 weeks after arriving at campus at Harvard. I bring this up because depression is a very serious issue, and it can affect anyone, regardless of their background, regardless of success. College students are common victims of the disorder, which is why I, a college student, stand before you today to first explain what depression is, then how to treat it, and finally, how you can connect with others who can empathize. But first things first, I should first explain what it truly means to be depressed. You may have heard the term depressed tossed around as a word to describe one's mood. But depression itself is more than that. It is a life-altering condition that is capable of skewing your own perception. A depressive disorder, as defined by psychology today, is a condition that disables motivation and interferes with the normal functioning of daily life and persists for a time span of at least 2 weeks. You may be experiencing depression yourself if you have these constant feelings of hopelessness and pessimism, loss of energy, and a significant change in appetite and sleeping patterns. My own symptoms started to develop in my first semester of college. I was so busy with my schoolwork that I tried to ignore them. But you can't do that. You need to pay close attention to your behavioral changes and address them as soon as possible. Because taking care of yourself is far more important than anything can ask from you. Far more important than any other obligations. Now, many misconceptions surround the meaning of depression. Whenever I had a depressive episode, my friends tried to convince me that I didn't have a valid reason to be sad. Another friend of mine who had depression before, he couldn't understand why his coping methods wouldn't work for me. For one, it doesn't take a traumatic episode to trigger a depressive episode. It can happen for no reason at all. So don't invalidate your own feelings just because you don't understand why it happens. And second, everyone is affected by depression differently, which is why people need different treatments. So if one method doesn't work for you, don't think that you've exhausted all of your options. You just need to keep trying. Find out what is the method that works for you. Which brings me to my next point. There are many ways in which you can treat depression. So many that I can't go over them all today. However, I can go over 2 of them. One is through the administration of medication, and the other is through outdoor engagement. Nancy Skimmelfenning, the administrator for a nonprofit depression support group, stated that neurotransmitters in the brain are responsible for the chemistry behind mood regulation, and that imbalances in these chemicals can result in various mental health conditions, such as depression itself. Now, I bring this up because you can have like an irregular function in these chemicals. And to treat these irregularities, I recommend you speak to a psychiatrist. They can prescribe you medication that contain the chemicals that your brain may be lacking in order to properly function and keep you happy. And if you're worried about the cost, Don't be. There are many places, like MHMR, the place that I go to, that make financial accommodations for those who are unable to afford it, like me and my family. Part of the reason why I am dressed in a not so very expensive wardrobe today. I'm not that expensive. Anyway. Second, people who say that going outside and doing exercise is important for the mind and body, they don't understand or explain why, do they? They just rehearse what's been told to them throughout their life. They don't give you the facts. Well, according to Rachel Nall, a writer for Healthline Media, decreased exposure to the sun is associated with a drop in serotonin levels, which can lead to major depressive symptoms, as I mentioned before. Also, Ashish Sharma from the University of Nebraska Medical Center states that improvements in mood are proposed to be caused by exercise-induced increase in blood circulation to the brain. Finally, know that there are other people besides me, you, and the people around you that can understand what you're going through. Remember, you are not alone. There are many people around you who have struggled through depression and understand how to deal with it. And connecting with these people, they can help you deal with those symptoms. Now, in 2017, the National Institute of Mental Health reported that 17.3 million adults in the U.S. had experienced at least one depressive episode, which represented 7.1% of the entire U.S. population in 2017. That really says a lot. And as I explained before, a depressive episode, that persists for at least 2 weeks. So don't feel bad if it seems like the people around you don't understand you, that they don't understand what you're going through. Because after all, it's still a minority of the population, but it's not so small that they're impossible to reach. Also, take it from me. Counseling is a great outlet for your negative emotions. Counselors are licensed professionals, and they keep the words that you tell them a secret so that they don't reach unwanted ears. And whenever your family and friends say that they know you better than a counselor would, maybe that's true. They do know you better. But a counselor, they know your condition better. So trust me whenever I say that while venting to family and friends can help, it doesn't replace the benefits that speaking to a professional like a counselor would. And vice versa. I highly recommend you do both. In conclusion, I've told you that depression is a life-altering condition that can be treated with the help of medication and outdoor engagement, and that it is always possible and recommended to connect with those who can understand what you're going through. However, I do not believe that I've covered everything that there is to know about depression. As someone who still struggles with his own depression, I know that there is never enough that you can say about it. I want to believe that what I say here tonight will help you, will fix the problem, but it won't. I want everyone to believe that they're strong enough to power through their struggles, but not everyone is. The truth is, depression is a very serious matter, and it's very difficult to fight. Whenever I first gained my symptoms, when I first noticed them, I was waiting. I was waiting for some kind of mind-changing revelation to hit me, or for someone to extend their hand, anything that would give me the strength that I would need in order to fight my depression once and for all. But what if that moment never comes? Have you thought about that? If there is one message that I want to get across to you today, it's this. Don't wait for it. When we grow up, we hear these stories about heroes who are granted courage by their allies or some higher power in order to defeat this greater evil. But that's fiction. And this is reality. A story writer will want their characters to grow and develop whenever it is most convenient for the story, whenever readers are most engaged, the climax. But who are the ones engaged in our lives? Who's really in control of our own destinies? I'll tell you this, it's not some fantasy writer. It's us. And nothing will happen unless we take the initiative on our own. So, I'll tell you this. Stop waiting for someone to save you. Be your own hero. And that's all I really have to say.